Welcome back to the Munn Avenue Muse podcast, brought to you by Munn, M-U-N-N, AvenuePress.com. And I'm extra delighted today to welcome Daniel Greenberg for a couple of reasons. One is Daniel narrated my Not So Dead thriller series, all 4 books, and did an amazing job. And so today we're going to talk about audiobooks. A good part of our audience are authors and probably interested in that subject. To get started, though, Daniel really is a Renaissance man, and even though he has done audiobooks for me, his vast and interesting background I want to hear more about too. Daniel has enjoyed careers as a social entrepreneur and sustainability advocate, specializing in eco-village education and climate change. And before I met Daniel, I didn't know what an eco-village was, so we're going to get more about that. But he later co-founded Gaia Education and served as president of the Global Ecovillage Network. And Daniel's visited over 150 eco-villages around the world and lived in many, including in India and in Scotland. So, Daniel, welcome, and I'm so glad that you can be here.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm happy to be here too.
And we haven't talked in a little while, so before we started, I said this will be a chance for us to catch up and for you all listening out there to eavesdrop on our catch-up conversation. So to start, Daniel, you have such an interesting background, and yes, I want to talk about audiobooks, but tell us about your education and eco-village journey.
Sure. Well, first I want to say it's great to be here, and you'll always have a soft spot in my heart because you were the person who first took a risk on me and asked me to produce the audiobooks for your Sam Sunborn series, which was great. And it was a good entry into the audiobook world because they were all about kind of save the world. And I've always been a save the world kind of guy. And that got me involved with ecovillages and education and helped start an organization called Gaia Education, which runs these ecovillage design courses. And for years, I managed a nonprofit called Living Roots, and we worked in partnership with the University of Massachusetts, and we ran study abroad programs in ecovillages around the world. So Findhorn in northern Scotland, some people have heard of, Oroville, a large community in South India, where I was just recently, and Israel, Mexico, Peru, Australia, all over the world. It was great, great work. And so audiobook kind of came late in my life and kind of in through the side door, I'd say.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, And obviously you're a world traveler, so where are you now and where are you going this year?
Well, I'm currently in Ann Arbor, and I recently spent 6 months at the community I mentioned, Oroville in South India, and then about 5 weeks in Mozambique. I'm actually finishing producing an audiobook now, which I started in India, and then I did the bulk of it in Mozambique, and now we're doing punch-ins here in Ann Arbor. And so he's really excited to be able to say that his audiobook was produced on 3 continents. And from here, my next trip is to Hungary, actually mid-August, for a big Global Ecovillage Network gathering. It's the 30th anniversary, so that'll be fun. And then I'm back, and I was invited to be a visiting scholar in Paris, of all things, in September. So looking forward to that. And then I'll be going back to Findhorn to see some old friends there too. I was also the director of education at the Findhorn Foundation in 22 and 23.
It's mind-boggling, Daniel, really.
Well, you get to live to a certain age. And I've done what you can kind of do in the eco-village world, at least professionally.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, many listeners out there are authors, and I get this question a lot with the Munn Avenue Press is, and more and more, the authors that we are working with want to do audiobooks. And there's good reason to do it because audio, I go back to books on tape. I had a long commute, and so I would listen to books on tape. And you I'd get these huge packages of cassettes, to listen to book. So when I published Not So Dead, I was so enamored with audiobooks. I said, I don't even care if they sell. We're doing audiobooks for our books. And I will mention that it was really interesting how you and I got together, and we do this for other authors for fiction. We run auditions, and we did an audition, and we had 10 submissions for narrators, and you were one of them. And your voice just hit the mark. And the way this process works might be interesting to people listening, but I provided the first chapter or two of my book, and the 10 people that were interested recorded samples of the audiobook, and we listened to them, and some of them were just flat. A couple were overly dramatic, because with an audiobook, it's not a theatrical presentation. You want intonation and tone so that the listener can discern that they're different voices. And Daniel, in my books, there's like 28 different characters. So he did young, old, male, female, and I challenged him with Spanish accents, Russian accents. I think we even had a Norwegian in there at one point, French accents, and he did them all. And Daniel speaks multiple languages, so that certainly helped.
Sorry, a dog just showed up.
Well, that's good. We can interview him too.
How are you doing?
People love pets anyway, so it's great to have them visit. I narrowed it down to 2 or 3, and then I shared the samples not only with my wife Amy, but with a group of readers who I respected, and we all agreed Daniel had the right voice. And it's proven out because I've had many reviews on Amazon and elsewhere that complimented Daniel on how terrific a job he did.
Yeah, I mean, I especially appreciate you taking a risk on me, because I honestly didn't know what I was doing back then. And I think I was using Audacity, and it typically takes between like 6 and 8 hours per finished hour. So it takes 8 hours of recording and processing and editing it. And with the first book, I'm sure I was in the like 12 hours per finished hour range. I was going in, but then I got better at it as I went along. And now there's a lot of good software that can really help with that.
Yeah. Well, I remember that because that was my first experience too, and me, I'm probably on the OCD scale, so I was giving you like really specific instructions, like that word was not in the book, don't say that word, and then right. I remember one of my key characters is Michelle Hadar.
Yes. Right. And it's misspelled and mispronounced the name.
And then you pronounced it Hater,
right?
And did most of it. It was like,
it was Daniel, like 40 mistakes.
Sorry to do this to you, but we got to change. It's Hadar. But you were so good about it and flexible.
We set up a system. I still use that system today, where we kind of like laid out, like, okay, I need to know where it is and what I've done and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you do fiction, it's easy to sort of get drawn into the story, but as an audiobook narrator, you don't, as you said, you don't want to be too dramatic, because that actually takes the listener out of the story. So it's a fine balance of like, how do you make enough distinction between characters, but have it be subtle enough that people aren't saying like, oh, now I'm hearing the narrator rather than the story.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And at the same time, I think what you were able to do, it's just like an actor interprets the script. You are making decisions about where to emphasize certain words and the tone you're going to use, and reflect the context of the situation. If I'm in danger, my voice is going to sound different than if I'm relaxed and just having a conversation. And so part of your skill and the skill of really good narrators is interpreting what you're reading in the context of the situation, in the accent of the particular character. I mean, a lot is going on.
Yeah.
That leads to another interesting sort of question, which is AI is,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can now have AI do audiobooks. And I want to just talk a minute about that. In that, I was a beta tester for Amazon ACX, because they introduced virtual voices, and I have a book of short stories that I didn't have an audiobook for. So I thought, okay, let me check out this AI narrator thing. And you could pick at the time from 6 different voices, male, female, one with an English accent, and so forth. And you could even do some editing, because AI will jumble up certain words or place names, or it won't pronounce things correctly. It's got a way to go. It's not there. It's not this. It's not the same as a human narrator, particularly for fiction. I mean, maybe it's a little better than those robotic voices of old, but it's not going to do that kind of interpretation that I just talked about with characters in context.
Not yet. But we're not going backwards. And my prediction is probably in the next 3 to 5 years, I think there's going to be a decline in audiobook narrators. Partly it's just a cost issue, right? I mean, it's probably a 10 times more expensive enterprise to work with an audiobook narrator than using an AI voice. I mean, the time will come, maybe in 10 years, where you could probably plug in your series and it'll create a movie for you. Right? I mean, that's not, I mean, it is evolving very, very quickly now. So that's another reason why I'm not putting all my eggs in the audiobook industry, because I do predict that it's an industry that is seeing its twilight. But that's true of almost every job with AI. Except the ones when we imagine stories, but then, it'll do some of that too. A lot of people are writing books with AI now.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject, but it's still not. It's maybe it will be, but it's still not at the point where it captures emotion and deeper meaning terribly well. So I think you've got a few years where we're still going to need you, Daniel.
I'm definitely gonna record my own book, and I'll record any book that you create for sure.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that.
I mean, the other problem with the AI recording thing, because I said, well, okay, let me go through this, and it was taking me so much time to edit one story in this 30-story book to correct the things that were wrong. I said, I don't know that it's a 10x cost, because even if you use AI, somebody's got to spend hours editing the voice to at least to a level where I find it acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it's going to be a while before AI gets there. And I think one of the skills of a good audiobook narrator is to have empathy with the characters. And something that helps is to have characters that you can empathize with. So that's something I want to commend you for, is that I cared about your characters. And I think that care comes through naturally when I'm with them, right? And that's not something that we can expect of AI yet, or in the near future. It'll get there. I mean, the time is coming when you'll be able to do a whole movie. So, but that's down the line.
That's down the line. There's one particular thing that was pretty poignant, and I want to just share this. So, in my third book, chapter 42, is one of the characters, Rich Little, is going to visit his mother in a nursing home, and she has Alzheimer's. And when I listened to Daniel's narration of that chapter, which was so poignant. And it meant a lot to me, too, because the interaction between Rich and his mother, my father-in-law had Alzheimer's, and I was very close to him. And I think I reached out to Daniel and I said, I just have to call out how amazing your narration was in that chapter. And he said, oh, coincidentally, my mother is in a home with Alzheimer's. And it came through in your voice, the resonance of that experience. And I think that's part of your skill overall, is you're able to do that. And when you narrated the first few books, I hadn't started Munn Avenue Press yet. So once Munn Avenue Press is a few years old now, and over the last 2 years, we've worked with 90 authors in 11 countries. Just got our first author in Switzerland. I recommended Daniel to a couple of our authors, and he narrated a book called The Pyramid Puzzle by Zane Raj, and another one called The Lost Ship by Jeff Lucas.
That one was fun.
It is a very fun...
Armstrong, a talking octopus.
Yeah, that's the voice. He got the voice. I had to do a talking octopus. Not only that, he had to do a talking octopus underwater. So, he had to get that voice just right. So that was quite great. So audiobooks, there's a business reason why audiobooks are compelling now, in that the sale of audiobooks is growing 20% a year, whereas eBooks and print are maybe 3 to 5%. So that audience is growing. I mean, at the time I listened to it in my car, but now people listen to it while they're cooking and while they're working out and while they're going for walks. And there's just, when you're time pressed, audiobooks is the only way some people can read, so to speak. So what made you in the first place be interested in narrating audiobooks?
Interesting. Well, yeah, as I said, it's kind of a side door. I've always loved reading to my kids. I have 2 daughters. They're grown now. I think I read Harry Potter to them probably 2.5 times and like a whole bookshelf. That was kind of my resume, And I was I had left Living Roots, that nonprofit that did study abroad, and my wife, who's a midwife and also Canadian, decided she wanted to move the family up to Canada so she could practice midwifery there, while I could pursue some non-paying work. I was doing a bunch of different things. And it turned out that wasn't a good fit for her. So it kind of ended abruptly. And coincidentally, it was probably the week earlier, this was back in the days of Groupon. I don't even know if it's still a thing, but I bought a course on audiobook production. I thought, why not? It was $20 or something, $19.99. I thought maybe someday I'll do that. And then Monique's job ended, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do? Because suddenly I felt like I needed to make the money again. And I thought, okay, well, here's something. And I kind of just binged through that course. And I thought, I could do this. And then I kind of wasted money on an audiobook narration course, and then also producing a demo tape, which I later realized you don't really need. And then I just started auditioning on ACX, which is where we found each other, and a couple other sites. Yeah, and I think I'm up to, 25 to 30 audiobooks mostly. I've done some other things, but I enjoy the audiobooks because it's a solid thing, and you can kind of get into it, and especially when it's a series.
Yeah, and and there were new voices with every edition, with every book, and it was great fun to do it with you. The other thing you had to learn was there's technical aspects to this, because for audiobooks, there's very specific audio requirements, volume levels, quiet, opening silence, closing silence. We prepare a script for Daniel, but also we do a lot of nonfiction audiobooks, and where the author has a good voice, I encourage them for nonfiction, because it's one voice, to narrate their own audiobooks. So for them, we find studios near them that can produce the quality we need and output the files, and then we platform them and get them distributed. So we're currently, we just finished one in Chicago, one in LA. We've got two going on in Massachusetts, where the author, and a new one is going to be in New Jersey, where I am, where the author will be narrating the audiobook themselves. And then you have, even for nonfiction, you have people who maybe they have a strong accent and it's not appropriate for them to narrate their own audiobook. So like you did the pyramid the pyramid puzzle had different voices, so
yes,
that was a different thing. But we had an author in Israel who had a very heavy accent, and she didn't want to narrate her own book, so we found a female narrator that did a very, very good job. Yeah. So we talked about why authors might want to do it, and you did mention to me in one of our email exchanges recently that you were doing some writing yourself. What's that about?
Yeah, well, I've had an idea for a sci-fi novel for a number of years now, and I'm kind of digging into it. And so I more and more appreciate your journey, because it's hard. It's really hard. But it's essentially a story, a vision of how we can get from where we are now to a better future. So it's a positive sci-fi, and it ends with, spoiler alert, with Gaia awakening. So it's actually pretty ambitious, and the main plot is a first mission to Mars, which goes horribly wrong, and what we learn in that process, and how that helps us evolve as a species. So it's fun. I'm in it. And it really is a platform to get all of my big ideas out there, which I seem to have a number of.
Yeah, so, it's interesting too, because and you know this because you've read and narrated my books, but I have found that if you can entertain people first, then you can deliver a message. Because if a reader isn't interested enough to turn the page, all is lost. It doesn't matter what you're writing, fiction, nonfiction. It's got to be interesting. They've got to want to turn the page. So in Not So Dead, it's a action-packed thriller, but at the same time, there's moral quandaries. There's a whole lot of discussion of consciousness and what that's really about, the current state of technology and what are the threats that we face, embedded in a story that hopefully keeps people's attention and drives them through. So I'll look forward to seeing your manuscript when you when you get to that point.
As a side note, I'm not planning on taking any money from it. So any money that comes in, I want to put into a fund that would help support the very ideas and visions that are laid out in the book. So that's the ultimate vision. But like you, I think imagination is so important. And I actually think it's probably the thing that is holding us back as a species right now, is that someone once said that it's easier for most people to imagine the end of civilization than it is to imagine, say, the end of capitalism or a world that works for everyone. And why is that? Because really, these are all just stories, right? But we tend to get stuck in them. So sci-fi and fiction really help people sort of blow up their balloon of what's possible. And so that's what really excites me.
Well, I think that's great because you touched on something which I think is probably true, is that it's easier for people to imagine things going wrong than things getting better. Because they don't know what that looks like. So if you can paint a picture of that, most of us know when it hits the fan. The economy has hit the fan in 2008, and we had oil crises in 74 and 81, and we've had the Vietnam War and the Iraq War and the Afghan War, and we had the the World Trade Towers coming down. So people know what that looks like, but do they know what a better world looks like?
Yeah.
How do we get them there, Daniel? I mean, you tell the story, I guess, is the way you start.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, as you said earlier, to keep people engaged, and also how I think it's unfolding, is that we're almost having, we're having this dissection or this mitosis where there's the good and the bad all at the same time, and we're having increased political turmoil, certainly the poly crisis and climate change, that's continuing. But at the same time, I think a new story is emerging, and more people are recognizing our fundamental interbeingness, essentially, with each other in all life, and are trying to act on that. And I think these two stories are now sort of overlapping. And so that's a lot of what the book will be about, of like, how do they kind of, well, not fight, but how do they emerge into something greater? And there is nuclear bombs.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. It's probably a subject we could talk about at length. Maybe for podcast part 2,
Sure.
Because I'm very interested in this too. And how do we envision and then execute on a better future?
Well, on that, something I didn't mention that I've been doing also as a side gig is I've been leading storytelling courses, what's called digital storytelling. So it's inviting people to craft a story of some transformation in their own life or an imagined future, and put it into a 3 or 4 minute YouTube video. So they narrate the story and they put images, maybe music, some video behind it. And it's really wonderful. And I'm really excited about helping people imagine from the future back. Because just as we imagine the future, I have a belief that the future is also imagining us. And so how do we allow ourselves to sort of live into that too?
Oh, that's a very profound thought.
It came to me in meditation a week ago. It'll be in the book.
Very cool. So what's next for you, Daniel? I mean, you told us a little bit about your travels and a book you're working on. Is there anything else that...
Oh, well, it's a lot. I'm engaged with network building. So through the Global Ecovillage Network and the Foundation for Intentional Communities, there's a couple big communities gathering. I mentioned one in Hungary. There's one in Maine in late August, and then a couple at a community called Twin Oaks in Virginia over Labor Day. And then I'm co-facilitating, gathering together, not just newbies, people new to the movement, what is this all, but people who've been in it for a while and saying, okay, what do we need to move this movement forward? So looking at exchange programs and needs and offers and consultancies, and how do we help cross-promote things that are happening? So how can we really find that emergent level of communities, a community of communities? And that ties in very much with my vision for the future, that we're all kind of evolving toward greater complexity and consciousness, essentially. And how do we do that together?
Cool.
It's all on the path to Gaia awakening.
So now I think what you've done is you've kind of boggled our minds with all the things you're doing. How do you get it all done? How do you manage your time?
You know, it's interesting. It's not something I think about. Maybe that's the trick. I just sort of do it.
You just do it.
I mean, I have to-do lists. You know, I notice for myself, I'm getting stressed when I start writing to-do lists on the back of an envelope. You know, when I'm like, because usually it's online, but if it gets too much, I'm like, I just need to know. Then it's a sign for me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I need to back up and kind of prioritize. I mean, a lot of it is always trying to keep the ball in someone else's court. I should say I'm not doing a lot of audiobooks nowadays. I'm not auditioning ever. And, but they come to me. One came to me, thank you again. You were on a different podcast, and I think you mentioned my name at the end of it, and someone heard that and said, oh, now we know an audiobook producer. And he contacted me, and I actually did that one in India, and it worked out really well. So it's enough for the amount. It's usually like 2 to 4 audiobooks a year come to me. And I'm like, that's fine with everything else that I'm doing. Yeah,
good for you. Well, Daniel, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I am working on book 5 of the Not So Dead series. It's tricky because I'm working on
He's back in the real world, isn't he?
Well, he's been back and forth a few times.
But like in a physical body, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm working on a couple of other books, and of course, Munn Avenue Press is keeping me pretty busy too. It's interesting that one of the books, because I mentioned this earlier, that I'm working on is I'm co-authoring a book about aging and dementia, a nonfiction book with a famous psychiatrist, Kenneth Robbins, and you'll hear more about that in the coming days too. So we're all keeping busy here.
We are. And good luck with that. That sounds like an important book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's an important book. And then those of you who catch the charleslevin.com blog, I have a series of short stories that when I get enough of them together, it'll be a book. It's about an older psychiatrist and his young mentee, and they solve cases that defy reality a little bit in New York City. So I'm working on that. That's progressing as well.
That sounds interesting.
So, well, Daniel, thank you again for taking some time here, and definitely we'll be back in touch for book 5 of the Not So Dead series. And you've been listening to the Munn Avenue Muse podcast, which you can get by just asking Siri or Alexa to play the Munn Avenue Muse podcast, and it'll just play it for you, or go to Munn, M-U-N-N, avenuemuse.com. It's on Substack, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And for those of you who have a book or thinking about publishing a book, we do produce audiobooks, just like we discussed with Daniel today. So please feel free to reach out at munnavenuepress.com and let's talk about your audiobook. Thank you again, Daniel. And
my pleasure.
I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Hey, this was great, Charlie.